From MTN Sports, welcome to Grizzly Insider, sponsored by Albertsons Safeway.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Grizzly Insider here on the Montana Television Network. Alongside the voice of the Grizz, Riley Corcoran, I'm Kyle Hansen. We're your hosts coming off of week 2 for the Montana Grizzlies football season as they fall to North Dakota 27-24. Riley, we were just talking off air. I mean, one of the weirdest games I think I've ever seen structurally when you look first half to second half, but kind of overall thoughts now that we're removed from that one.
When the game got over, we knew it was bizarre, right, Kyle, from first half to second half. But the more that we have gotten into this box score a little bit deeper and going to the play-by-play, I don't know if you're going to see a game that was so different from half to half that we did, from the numbers that we're going to get into, but just the general feel around it. I think that leading into this game, a lot of people said, okay, tough road test, tough place to win, maybe a coin flip game. After the first half, you're thinking, oh boy, the Grizz are really good. And then after the second half, you're thinking, maybe there's a lot of question marks. So there's a lot to unpack from it. The good news is it's very early, but also it's time to go to the drawing board a little bit for Montana for certainly a couple of areas.
It's interesting looking at this non-conference slate too, right? These first 2 games have been way tougher than I think a lot of people thought, maybe looking a year ago, looking ahead to this. Let's dive into that first quarter because, I mean, I don't know about you up in the booth, but like down on the sidelines, I thought the Grizz looked like world beaters. I mean, offensively, it felt like, okay, Ayat, he's comfortable. They had the weapons involved. It just felt like everything was free-flowing. 195 of their yards came in the first quarter as they took that lead.
Poetry in motion. That offense in the tempo, Kyle, that got them going. It seemed like Kale Ayat, maybe under the radar, he completed his first 9 passes, and he was 14 for his first 15. But not only that, he got everybody involved. It was Xavier Harris, the running game with Eli Gilman, and the offensive line was getting a push. Everything was working together until it went the other direction, right? And so I think that we all got excited when you could see, okay, the running back core, the wide receivers, that's what we think the strength is going into the season. To see them all involved, I think that gets everyone really excited.
You know, and made that impressive play escaping the sack, right? To find X for the touchdown play. So, you know, really free-flowing, like you mentioned. They looked really, really good. Second half, man, it flipped. And part of that is, obviously, they didn't play a whole lot in the second half with the offense. So just looking at these stats, so obviously second half, North Dakota had the ball for essentially 24 minutes of the 30 minutes of the second half. Grizz only had 16 offensive plays total. First 3 drives, 3 and outs. Wow. It just felt like things just completely stalled. They needed something to go right, like get a first down or 2, get some kind of rhythm or momentum, and it just didn't happen.
It did not. And really, you break it down a little bit further, painful to say this, but 16 offensive plays that went for a total of 34 yards. Well, Ka'ili Ayat had a 32-yard scamper on that 2-minute drive. So you take that away, there was really nothing. The Grizzly offense stalled, not in rhythm. All of those things maybe play a part, Kyle, but the fact that the halftime adjustments that North Dakota made defensively and then going Ayat, Fife, it just seemed, it was clunky the whole way. And I think a lot of credit just has to go to North Dakota. They imposed their will. And what is crazy about it is you would think this team is not built to come from behind. Montana handled all of the elements early. They handled the crowd. They handled maybe any of the adjustments UND was going to make. How did it feel on the sidelines of how different at least the Grizzly team was in the second half compared to the first?
Well, it was wild because the student section's right behind the Grizzly bench. I mean, they were giving it to the to the Grizz, and I mean, the crowd was very energetic and very involved in the game, and that's kind of what you wanted to see. It was made for an exciting atmosphere for that reason. The crowd was hyped. They were good. A little quiet on third downs in the first half, which I thought was interesting when the Grizz were on offense, but obviously then that's switched. You know, I look at the defensive side of the ball for the Grizzlies, though, was kind of the other hiccup, right? Obviously, North Dakota dominated the time of possession, and you look at these scoring drives, I mean, it was 10 plays, 16 plays, 14 plays, long drives eating up all the clock. And it just felt like the defense also couldn't quite get that big play and that big stop, and third downs were an issue once again.
They were 5 of 8. North Dakota was on third down, but if you look a little bit closer, they converted a 4th down, and then they got 2 field goals. So they were successful every single time, every drive. And it was, again, tough for that Grizzly defense to just find any momentum. Give a lot of credit to UND. They imposed their will, and we've never seen 2 halves that were drastically different like that.
No doubt about it. Well, we'll continue to break this one down after the break. Coming up, Riley catches up with Coach Hauck.
There's more coverage of the Grizzlies online anytime at montanasports.com. Welcome back to Grizzly Insider, sponsored by Albertsons Safeway.
And welcome back to the Grizzly Insider. Tough one for Montana on their first road trip of the year at North Dakota, falling by 3. Getting ready to turn the page to Morehead State. Before we do, though, let's talk with head football coach Bobby Hauck. And, Coach, we've been kind of diagnosing this one ever since the final whistle, but just some of the first things that come to your mind when thinking about the wild game. 60 minutes where one half was one direction and the other half couldn't have went any more drastically the other way.
The thing that comes to mind, first, foremost, and maybe the only thought we need to have is it's such a shame not to come out of there with a win. Being up like we were, dominating the game, and to go out and just look like two different teams in two different halves, we have to have a solution for that. And the margin for us to win that game shouldn't have been as tight as it was, and we should have come out with a win, and we didn't. So good by the opponent, but not good enough by us.
What was bizarre about it, Coach, for a lot of different reasons, is the fast start that you guys had. You were thinking, okay, if things weren't going to go Montana's way, it probably was going to be because it was a tough start. The atmosphere was maybe going to be a little overwhelming. That was not the case. Let's talk about the beginning of the game where you guys did get off to a hot start and did handle the atmosphere. Just take me through the beginning of the game and what went well to begin.
A major point of emphasis last week was the fast start, because North Dakota is a very fast starting team at home, dealing with the environment, the crowd noise specifically. It's a loud place, and we did all those things great. We got off to a blistering start in the first quarter, and we handled the noise. There was no administrative problems. I thought our young quarterbacks did a great job of that, and everything was going our way. When things tipped the other direction, we didn't handle it well enough, and that's mostly just an execution problem. We need to play better. A couple first downs in the second half, it's probably a different outcome.
On offense, you guys got all of your points early and all 3 touchdowns in the first quarter. Kaylee Iayat starts 9 for 9, 14 of 15. The running game was going. Eli Gilman, Nick Osmo, both with big-time runs. The offensive rhythm that you guys had in the first quarter, first half, was just phenomenal. Take me through what you liked from it and things that obviously you'd like to see for the remainder of the season.
Well, the rhythm was good. We had a good mix of plays. We had a good mix of tempos where we were going fast or we were slowing down and looking at them. We had a lot of good things going. We got out of that in the second half simply because we couldn't get first downs and get into anything. When you're going 3 and out, there is no flow, there is no rhythm. You can't get to everything you want to get to, and that's what caused the unraveling in the second half.
Defensively, you guys stopped North Dakota in the first half, right? And in the second half, it just seemed that they got their ground and pound game going. Greg and I were joking up in the booth. It was maybe the most boring offense to call. It was 3-4 yards cloud to dust, but at the same time, take me through maybe just the defensive performance from the first half to the second half and what was maybe so troubling in that second half a little bit, Coach.
We tackled well in the game throughout, so I thought that was improvement from week 1, which was expected. We got off the field in third down the first half. They were 1 out of 5, I believe. The second half, like you said, it was kind of boring. It really was to a degree. It was a series of 4-yard gains. And that's really what the offense did to us. And in fact, the math is 3 times 4 equals 12. You can move the chains, and that's what they did. And so we've got to get them into third and longer, so they can't do what they wanted to do. But there's not a lot to diagnose. Those are 2-yard gains or 3-yard gains instead of 4. Different outcome. But it was a series of 4-yard gains, like you mentioned. 2nd and 8, they get a 6-yard gain and get it in 3rd and 2. It's like a huge play for them. Yeah. So we'll be better. We're going to get off the ball. We're going to do some things a little differently. We're going to have to play tendencies a little bit better. And we'll be okay. As
you navigate through this difficult non-conference, you've had way more successful weeks than unsuccessful weeks, but at the same time, these weeks are obviously big for your football team to get back, to get right a little bit. What are some of the common themes that happen, and what are you hoping for to see from your team this week before we see you guys on Saturday against Morehead State?
Well, we've played 2 really physical teams out of the Missouri Valley. That's going to take its toll. We've had a team where we've had quite a few players that have not been able to get on the practice field enough to really be playing as effectively as maybe they can. So we're hoping to keep practicing, keep working at it, keep bringing guys along, and then just continued improvement through September and get into October and start playing a little better. And we're looking to play our best, as you mentioned, this weekend. We're looking to play our best game this weekend.
Well, it sure will be nice to be at home for 4 of the next 5, right, Coach?
Yeah, it's always good to be in Grizz Stadium.
Well, it will be a great weekend here against Morehead State. We've got a great show for you. Kyle with a very special guest on the other side of the break.
Get social with Grizzly fans and follow MTN Sports on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Welcome back to Grizzly Insider, sponsored by Albertsons Safeway.
And welcome back into the Grizz Insider. Thank you so much for joining us. And we have a very special guest here today, and Montana Grizzlies defensive lineman Sloan McPherson. Sloan has a tremendous story about what he's doing off the field with the Grizzlies. And first of all, Sloan, thanks so much for joining us. And let's go ahead and jump into it. So they recently did a story on you about working with the National Marrow Donor Program, basically the Be the Match initiative that the Grizzlies do, where you guys, they find a match for people with life-threatening diseases, and you were chosen as a match. So just, can you kind of walk me through the process of the last couple of months for you and how you were able to be so effective in this initiative?
First, I just got a phone call, picked up the phone, and they told me it was the Be the Match. And they told me that I'm one of a couple potential donors. So then I just went through a questionnaire, and then I went in for some blood work to confirm that I was the best match for this particular person. After that, there was kind of a waiting period where I didn't have to do anything, and then I had to go get my blood work done again, just to make sure everything's still good, still healthy enough to donate. Then they sent me some medication that I'd have to take, some shots to boost up my immune system. They flew me down to Boise, and I donated stem cells.
All in all, it was about a 2-month process, right? From basically early in the summer until leading up to the opener, right?
Yep.
When you are kind of going through this process, you know, it was all about kind of staying ready too. But I know you mentioned you've been doing this since the Grizzlies since you've been on campus. They've been doing this for about 4 or 5 years. The whole team has been able to kind of be part of this initiative. So for you, when you get that call, like, what's that moment like? You know, when it's looking real now that you actually might be needed for this.
Yeah, I mean, you never really expect to get picked because the chances of getting picked are pretty low. But when I got the call, I was kind of excited, just knowing that I had the chance to help someone else out.
Absolutely. Well, so like you mentioned, so you got the call kind of earlier in the summer. Then you flew down to Boise, I believe it was August 25th, donated August 26th, and then flew back to get ready for the Grizzlies opener against Missouri State. So what was that process like as you went down, and what was the donation process like itself?
So for the donation process, you go in there in the morning, they hook up an IV to one arm, then that one takes blood out, runs it through the machine, collects your cells, and then they run the rest of the blood that they sorted through back in the other arm, and you sit in the chair from 6 to 8 hours. So it's kind of an all-day ordeal. One
of the things, you know, obviously with going through this process was the week of the opener. You guys were just wrapping up fall camp. So for you, I guess what was it like kind of trying to balance both, right? Knowing you might miss the opener, but knowing that what you were doing was also going to be for a cause bigger than football.
Yeah, no one wants to miss a football game, but I thought that it's more important to do the right thing. And I had faith that I'd be able to make it back for the game, and I was going to push through it regardless. So I just had it in my mind the whole time that I wasn't missing the game.
Did you feel like pretty good pretty quickly afterwards? Well, what was, I guess, you know, because I mean, you go through something like that, your body might be acting a little weird, but did you feel pretty normal pretty quickly?
Yeah, I was a little sluggish afterwards for sure, but it was nothing that was terrible for me. Like, I didn't feel super sick. People react differently to it, and I guess I just got lucky that it didn't affect me too much.
Absolutely. I believe you're the 7th member at the University of Montana who's been matched with this program since they've been doing it. A number of athletes have been as well. So for you to kind of get a chance to help potentially save a life and, you know, be a bigger part of this, how special was that for you, knowing that you get to have that impact?
Oh, I thought it was an honor. Not many people get to do it. I mean, it's really life-changing, not just for the person that receives it, but also for you, just knowing that you did something good for someone else.
Absolutely. Well, it plays into your time as a Grizzly, so let's talk about it. First of all, Savage, Montana, shout out, town of about 300 people way out in eastern Montana. Going from 6-man football to FCS football, you know, you play a lot of special teams for the Grizzlies. What was that transition like? And I mean, really, you know, not only moving across the state, but also playing this level of football.
Yeah, I just remember the first day of practice I went out there, the field's bigger, twice as many people on the field. My head was just spinning the whole time. And still, it's even crazy when every time I step on the field, it seems so big compared to 6-man football.
You're playing a little bit now, right? You know, you're kind of getting on the field, getting a chance to be a contributor. So what's that been like? And, you know, for you, just how would you kind of sum up your time as a Montana Grizzly so far?
I mean, it's super fun playing. A lot of hard work went into it. Basically just trying to find my role. Right now, that's special teams. Just glad I can help out the team in any way.
He's finding a role, absolutely. Well, kudos to you, Sloan, for doing this with Be the Match, and thank you so much for joining us here on Grizz Insider.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Coming up, Riley and I will look ahead to Morehead State up next.
Welcome back to Grizzly Insider, sponsored by Albertson Safeway.
Welcome back to the Grizz Insider. Kyle, before we move ahead, we have to talk about an amazing job on the interview with Sloan McPherson first off, and it really goes to show you that it's not all about maybe what happens on the 60 minutes on the field each Saturday.
Boy, stories like that put things in perspective, right? And I know it's kind of a cliche saying, but it is one of these things where here you have a kid from one of the smallest communities in the state of Montana coming to Missoula, kind of big city feel, seeing things for the first time, playing college football at the Division I level, and then gets this opportunity to do some things off the field. It really is special, and kudos to Sloan and the Grizzlies and everybody else who's involved in that.
It's a big initiative. Coach Hauck, the rest of the team, and it's just awesome to hear Sloan talk about it. Not only that, but hey, the field's pretty big. That was just a great segment altogether here on the Grizz Insider. Let's turn the page and talk about Morehead State. They come in here and a bit of an unknown, right? So we're going to give people the basics at least on Morehead State, but out of the Pioneer Football League, just some of your observations and what you've seen. They're off to a hot start and they're feeling pretty good. There are some positive vibes of what's going on in Morehead, in Kentucky, by the way, of what they're going to bring here this weekend.
No doubt. Well, so fans might remember they played Montana State in 2022 in Bozeman, were beat by 50 points. It is the Pioneer League non-scholarship. Fans will remember Butler from a year ago. You know, same league, people are going to be seeing that. It's interesting, though, because we look at that league and we look at the non-scholarship elements, the first thing that jumps off the page, right? Well, Drake, who was picked to win the league, just upset Eastern Washington in Cheney this last weekend. Now, the difference is Drake was picked to win the league. They won it last year. Morehead State was picked 9th. But they're 2-0 for the first time since 2007. Haven't played a D1 opponent yet. Played a D2 in NAIA. So they got to be feeling a little bit of mojo. And, of course, they've got a first-year head coach as well.
They do, and that gives them a lot of firepower. And before we continue on, let's see what Coach Hauck had to say about their upcoming opponent.
They're 2-0. We're 1-1. We need to play a great game and get our second win. And, you know, I think for us, we need to go play a complete game. We have not done that yet. We need to play offense, defense, special teams, play well in all three phases throughout the entire game and see what happens.
Well, Kyle, the early dive into the prep for Morehead State is there's renewed energy about their program. When you have a first-year head coach, that certainly happens. Jason Woodman comes in from the Division II ranks. This is a team, this is a program that feels they have something to prove. This is when they're on the national stage. And not only that, a team that has had a couple of losing seasons back-to-back. There's some firepower with what they have from an individual standpoint when you were looking at it.
And you're going to look, some of these guys are going to come in, right? They've never seen an environment like this. So they're going to want to step up big, kind of get a little bit of momentum to keep it going, as you're mentioning. So as you kind of look at this, Connor Ganal, quarterback, transfer from New Mexico a couple of years ago. He kind of had a big game in their last game, and then Garnett Davis III, their running back, was kind of their bell cow in the opener. Didn't do a whole lot in the second game, but he's kind of one of these guys that, you know, it seemed like by committee. Seems kind of how they were operating thing. And interesting enough, you know, when they got their win over Kentucky Christian, you look here at Matthew McClellan, 3 interceptions.
Whoa.
I don't remember the last time I saw someone have that in any kind of game. NFL, college, high school, anything like that. So there's some guys, you know, they're going to want to come in and make a statement. But, you know, for the Grizzlies coming off a loss, you know, they're going to be fired up, and they're really going to want to make a statement just to kind of get that North Dakota taste out of their mouth.
You just think that if there's any game on the schedule, and no disrespect to whoever the next opponent is coming in, if there's any game where it's about Montana, you get the feel that it's probably this one, right?
100%. Yeah. You know, they just kind of get back on track. It's kind of the perfect opponent to do that. You're back at home for a while. Make a statement.
And we'll see if they can do just that. 4 of their next 5 games will be at home inside Washington Grizzly Stadium. We'll wrap up the show on the other side of the break.
Take coverage of the Grizz with you. Download our app for your favorite mobile device today. Welcome back to Grizzly Insider, sponsored by Albertson Safeway.
And welcome back here to the Grizzly Insider. And Riley, another big week ahead for Grizzly Athletics. What's on deck?
A lot. Soccer back at home after a long road trip. They're at home on Sunday. Grizzly volleyball, just a great weekend at home in their home tournament. They go on the road. Of course, we'll have the Coaches Show, Inside the Den podcast rolling. But Kyle, I don't think that pales in comparison to the fun week you have coming up.
Very thrilled. Myself and Tom Wiley, my colleague here at MTN, we are getting sent to Las Vegas to cover Sugar Sean O'Malley at UFC 306 at the Sphere. Wow. First ever live sporting event at the Sphere. They did the NHL draft there, but first live telecast of an ongoing event. So very excited for that. He'll be defending the UFC bantamweight title against Merab Dvalishvili. We were there in Boston when he won the title. It's an unbelievable atmosphere. Very grateful they're sending us to get a chance to do this. But don't worry about that, because my coworker Derek Joseph will be joining the MTN broadcast team on the sidelines, getting his first crack at that for the Morehead State game. And then Riley, he'll be joining you here in my seat.
Well, first off, you don't worry about a thing, and viewers don't worry about a thing. Myself and Derek will have you covered, not only on the broadcast, but for the Grizz Insider next week.
We're fired up. That'll do it for us here on the Grizzly Insider. Have a great weekend.